Welcome to the Huntsville Hustle Podcast, where we highlight some of the small businesses that are backbone of the Rocket City, and we're featuring some nonprofits this month. And today we have Ray Allister. He's the executive director of the Huntsville Learning Center, a really awesome place you need to know more about. So, Ray, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Joe.
Absolutely. So I'm excited. In case people haven't heard of it, it used to be called the Huntsville Inner City Learning Center, if you've heard of that. But we're going to get into some of that. But for people who hadn't heard of it, what do you guys do, and who do you help?
Hey, so we offer after school and summer camp programming for underserved students and their families. And so what we really try to focus on, we're faith-based, so we're very much holistic, mind, body, spirit. And what we aim to do is grow kids, their love of God, their love of learning, and their love of each other. And so we do that through a ton of programs. We have in our after school, we make sure we serve them a healthy snack. They come in, they have opportunities to participate in enrichment activities, and they have a Bible every day. And then we go into tutoring time, and we do academic development as well as getting them ready for the next day of school.
There you go. It all starts with the healthy snack, man. If you get them with the healthy snack, you got their attention for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Could you share the story of Mr. Art and just the legend of him and how he started this whole thing?
Absolutely. Mr. Art, he started the Learning Center. He passed away suddenly in 2019. It was unexpected. And when you actually look at the impact of his passing, you actually see the depth of his impact as he lived. And people like Art and Leslie are the ones who change history, with their courage and with their faithfulness. He stepped up, God called him to this thing. And so he served the children that we serve today. He's the one that actually went after them first. And so it was a place that hit him close to home because he grew up in the projects, parent home. His mom, worked, the whole nine. That was his story. And so he grew up in the projects, but there's one story about Mr. Art that I heard because I personally didn't get a chance to meet him, but this story about when he was a kid, he got picked up by someone to be taken to like a church program or something. And the bus driver told him, son, you don't have to be where you are right now. Like your life can look different than where you are right now. And he took that to heart. And so he wanted more than what he had. And so through education, he went to end up his mom was able to leave the state. They moved to Michigan. She got a good job. He was able to go to college, scholarship, played football. And then he finished up his school. He went to the University of Michigan. And then he finished up his schooling at a smaller Christian college where he studied business. And so he got an MBA, went into corporate America, worked for companies like Circuit City, Sears, big companies during the 90s, 80s, 90s, 70s, 60s, that era. So he actually was called by God back to Huntsville, where he kind of left the corporate situation in faith. And they were going to a church called the Huntsville Inner City Church of Christ, right off Maston Lake here. And it's now Lakewood Church. And so that's actually where the organization got its name from, the Huntsville Inner City Church of Christ. And so he was working with the youth group, man. And he was teaching Bible to these kids, and they were struggling to read the Bible. And his question that pretty much is what developed into this organization is, if they can't read the Bible, how are they doing in school? How can they read in school? And so he saw this as a opportunity to help them develop their faith, but then also to help them develop their academics. He saw those two things as pillars of developing young people into stronger, members of society. So that's how the organization started, man. It was just him taking those kids under wing, and through many years and many volunteers and supporters, we've grown from, I think initially it was like 4 or 5 kids to now, in a calendar year, we service over 150 kids. And when I say service, I mean, we go deep, man. Like, it's like we are, coming alongside parents to be, 10 staff members now, where we just have each 10 kids of our own, so 10 to 15 that we go deep into, just to make sure that they're getting that extra love and extra parenting and extra encouragement. So it is what Mr. Art started, man. It is what what communities need. We need someone who is an advocate. We need someone who's who stands in the gap and who understands the concept of redemption. And that's what he was about, man. He's a legend for that.
He's a legend for sure, and his fingerprints are still all over that program, and just the love he had for those kids, it shines through. You got to see the video. We'll have to link that on our page, man. Just talking about his legacy and all the things he did for kids and for the community as well.
Yeah,
Legendary.
yeah, for sure.
So, well, let's talk about you a little bit. So you could probably be doing a lot of different things. What's your why for doing this work?
Yeah, and very similar. God really had me on a journey that I wasn't even trying to start, man. Like honestly, if I was real, like I came to Huntsville for something completely different than what God had in store for me. So I wanted to do engineering. That's what I was trying to escape poverty by using the mind that He gave me. And when I graduated from college, He was like, no, I need you to go into teaching. And I was like, come on, man, I don't want to teach. Teaching, like these kids are bad, man. They don't even respect anybody. So I was making all the excuses, but God ultimately led me to teaching, the best thing that ever happened to me. And so when I thought I wanted to do engineering, my whole thing was efficiency. Like, how do you make things more efficient? And especially in electrical, I wanted to work on electrical efficiency. And so what God pivoted me to is educational efficiency. And so now it's like, okay, how can we make my first couple of years in education? I recognized that there was a lot of just inefficiency, in education. And God just put me on that path to start developing processes and programs to make it just a better experience for kids. What ended up happening is I started serving kind of the more affluent families in the city and love them to death. I mean, my people, like my wife and I were able to go to a wedding recently to one of my former students, and it was so much fun, be able to celebrate with him. But what became so clear after about 5 or 6 years of great success with these families is that there was a group of kids that I belonged to when I was a kid that will never be able to walk through those doors. They would never be able to open that door of my business because their families just didn't have the means. And so it was kind of like a seed that God placed in my heart. It just was like a thought one day. Because I'm talking about like BMWs and $60,000 Jeeps pulling up. These kids, like their families have it like that. And not everybody, but a lot of them did. And so there's just like, God put this fire like, man, I got to figure out a way to give back to the kids whose families don't have. And I didn't know what that was about to be. Probably around 2021, I was also serving as a youth minister, which is another thing God led me to the year prior. So I was in that youth minister role for maybe about a year before they did a project actually with the Huntsville Learning Center. And so I'd been talking to like some of my clients before. I was like, hey, look, I really want to give back to the community. Like where this is before, I never heard of the Learning Center before, the Huntsville Industry and Learning Center. I never, ever. And so, but a couple of my clients was like, hey man, I really need to figure out a way to give back. Like how can I do that here in Huntsville? And several people said, have you heard of the Huntsville Intercity Learning Center? And this is like 2019. So then COVID hit, and it kind of put some things on pause. And I'm like, but over the years, I just kept hearing about this place, the Huntsville Intercity Learning Center. And when I'm in staff meeting at the church I'm working for, we wrapped the staff meeting and someone's like, oh, I'm about to go to Huntsville Industry Learning Center for a meeting. I was like, yo, I got to go with you. Like, I've got to go with you. Like, I've got to get into that room. Like, I've been hearing about this place forever. Every time I ask somebody, they tell me, hey, you need to go to this place. So I go to the Learning Center, walk through those doors at the old location off Braun. And the executive director at the time was Curtis Coughlin. And so, they were having a meeting about planning for the year. And what they can do for families. And my whole thing is education can be empowering if you leverage it the right way. If kids can actually get an education without going into debt, which is the key part, because the debt often saddles them in a way that it's hard for them to break the generational poverty anyway. And so, especially for kids coming from underserved communities, it's actually really important that they don't incur debt when they're getting an education. And so that was what I talked about. It's like how, if you want to really get to the core of this, we've got to make sure these kids are ready. If they're going to go to college, they need to go for free. If they don't need to go to college, they need to be lined up with a program that works for them, blue collar. And there's no shame in that. And we just started having a conversation. And then they asked me to come volunteer. And I started volunteering. I started volunteering as a Bible teacher. And then the Holy Spirit was like, started showing me like, hey, look, this might be something that you need to jump into. Joined the staff. 6 months into that, the executive director retired, and here I am as the executive director now. So, but it's the same passion, man. The reason why the Lord led me here was there's a need for these kids to have the opportunities that other families have, because they're just as brilliant. They're going to solve and be a part of the solution for many big problems. They just don't have the opportunities. And so without our community being able to tap into all of the mental power that we have, ultimately the community is going to suffer, right? And so what we're trying to do is maximize the health of our community by engaging those kids who might otherwise be disengaged, because they just don't have access. And that's what I love about the organization. It really tries to help build the community by building these kids up. So.
Yeah, that's it. I love you're applying your engineering to the education field, and it's showing. Right? You get those efficiencies in there. So when you're dealing with kids at really formative ages, what's a success story that kind of reminds you, hey, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing?
Man, there's so many, but I'll tell you what, and every single staff member here has these like really deep relationships that they kind of build. Everyone has like their person, or their people. And so from my perspective, like one of the stories with the Learning Center, there was a young man who used to just like wild out, like throwing stuff. And, his story is pretty well known for a lot of volunteers that have been around the Learning Center for a long time, because he was like just the king of chaos, man. Like, he brought the pain. And there were so many people who just got behind him and loved on him. And then they started realizing there were some issues that he got tested. They started seeing, the underlying issues, and he got the extra support. He got the extra help. He got scholarships, so many things to help him to be in the situation that he needed to be academically. And so after about, I believe he was in the program for 6 or 7 years, before this part of the story happened. He was after he settled, he just became just such a good student. He was just involved, engaged, doing his work. And he was part of a team of 5 students. 4 of them actually got to attend the trip, but they were part of this group doing a stream, and they were doing like a 3D printing course pretty much. And they designed a project, and he was part of that process, from throwing stuff across the room to being part of the group that actually built something that won an award in the international design competition. And we got to take 4 of those kids to California 2 summers ago to accept that award. But that young man, I literally like to see him on stage smiling, knowing where he'd come from. And I think what that tells you so well about the Learning Center is that the staff here, the volunteers here understand it's not really the manifestation of the kids' pain that you have to worry about. It's what won't they be if you don't step in, right? What won't they become if you don't keep working with them? And that is such a common thing. Like all the stories kind of are woven into that kind of framework where the kids, they have so much stuff, man. These kids are carrying some burdens, they're carrying heavy things and they don't know how to deal with it. And so what we see is the manifestation of their frustration or their anger. And I tell the kids all the time, every undealt with emotion becomes anger. If you were sad and you're just tired of being sad and it hasn't been dealt with, you're going to become angry. If you were disappointed and it wasn't dealt with, you're going to become angry. Like everything just kind of undealt with becomes anger. And so we see them angry, but it's because some things just haven't been dealt with. And so that's what the staff and the volunteers and just the community really supports, is like, how do we unpack this stuff that these kids are handling and stick with them and do life with them and show them that they're worthy of doing life with? Because sometimes they're trying to push you off just to see if you even really care or if you're just another person. So just the stick-to-itiveness that the organization practices to not just, hey, this kid is a good kid and this kid's a bad kid, so this kid can't be here anymore. But there's really been intentionality about sticking with the challenging situations, especially when we know, hey, that kid needs help, man. They don't even want to be like this, but this is all they know.
Yeah, man, that's you said a mouthful right there. There's so many kids that are slipping through the cracks that have so much potential. They just need someone to love on them, teach them the way to go, point them in the right direction, stick with them. No telling what that kid's what he's able to do now, just because you guys fed into him. And hey, same kid, but just a little bit of love and direction. Man, it's amazing. Don't give up on kids. You're listening right now. Don't give up on kids. They got so much they can do when they're going through that age. And like you said, they've been through a lot. They don't know how to react. They don't know what to do. They need you. So that's why you guys are doing a crucial mission right here. And there's people like you out there that, man, I just imagine, how do you get through? Like, what keeps you motivated? Because that doesn't happen overnight. You got to keep showing up day after day, being consistent. How do you keep showing up like that?
Man, for me personally, I feel very much on mission, man. God gave me this mission and I live for two words, man. Well done. And so, that's how I get down, and so for me, God has gifted me with an immense amount of skill in certain things. I don't ever take it for granted. He's blessed my mind in ways that I just don't even understand why. And I feel responsible to use all my talents to serve him and serve my community. And so, when it comes down to it, I have two kids now, and we have bonus kids as well. My wife and I, we are serial mentors, and we family and the nuclear family and chosen family is so critical for people to be able to be their best selves. And so what I always think is, what type of world are my kids going to be in? Are they going to be in a world? And I even challenge like our supporters, like, if you think that the kids we serve aren't a part of your problem, who's going to make sure that your kids get home on time? Who's going to make sure that your kids can spend time with their families, because they're not the only one on the job who is working well? Who's going to make sure that they actually don't stress out because the burdens they carry are the burdens that 5 people are supposed to carry, but it's only them, doing quality work. Like, that's not fair. So this is our country, our communities, it's not something that runs itself. It's not something that is autonomous. It requires people who are engaged and who are actively working towards making it strong. And so those are the things that really drive me. Like, I want our community to be strong. I want Huntsville to be a special place. I want, our children to be able to come together and solve our big problems and be served by the community. They could take care of their families because they're taking care of the community. It's a social contract. And so that's what really keeps me going, is I really believe that God has called us to be a strong community. And I want to make sure that when I breathe my last, man, I say, hey, I really worked hard to, pass on to the next generation this sense of responsibility.
Yeah, I think you're on track. I think you're on track, man. And everyone I've talked to and I've met from Huntsville Learning Center is on the same page, and they're passionate and they're excited to be there. They don't have to be there. They want to be there. And it tells. It's a difference for sure. You can feel the difference. So you talked about, man, you guys go deep and you do a lot of programs. Tell us kind of what a typical day looks like at the Huntsville Learning Center.
Yeah, for sure. So because we're after school and our summer camp, that's a whole nother thing, man. Summer camp is like, by the time summer camp wraps, like, all the adults are limping out the building, man. We are exhausted, dude. It's like, do I need to go to chiropractic tomorrow, man? I need to go get another massage, man. You're just throwing massages away, by the time it's all said and done. But during the after school, so our elementary, we right now we're running K through 11. We were blessed when we moved into our new facility to be able to expand to high school. So our K through 2 and our 3rd through 6 kids normally get in first, because the elementary level gets out at 2:30. So we see them start coming in around 2:40. 2:37, 2:40. We have a couple bus routes that we run, and we have parents who drop off. And so right around 2:40, we'll have kids coming in and they'll start having their snack, kind of unwinding. And then generally during that 2:40 to about 3:15 window, they're trickling in, having their snack as they show up. And right around 3:30 is when we start really doing the enrichment activities. So each group has their own thing that they do. And so, for example, yesterday we had math proficiency. So I was able to teach a math proficiency course for our middle school students. And then at the same time, we had Element Dance Company was here doing a dance class in our sanctuary space. There was another group doing art. There's another group that was with one of our partners, Heart to Heart. Dogs came in to read with the kids, so the kids can read with the therapy dogs. And so there's just always something. We try to do quarterly enrichment activities so the kids can have diversity in their experiences. And each day, Monday through Thursday, there's something different going on. And then we transition to Bible. Character is really important. And again, it's where we get to talk about the things that matter, because a lot of our students, they're not coming from environments where you talk about kindness, or you talk about faith, or you talk about, patience or empathy. And so we're trying to instill those things, and we repeat ourselves a lot. So a lot, man, a lot. And sometimes you're like, dude, we just talked about this yesterday, bro. Yesterday. Come on, man. But, that's how God works with us, man. He keeps working with us. I'm 38. He's still teaching me stuff from 12 years ago. So I'm like, okay, cool. I can be patient with a kid, So, and then what's really great is we have so many volunteers that come in towards the end of the day to help. They come off the arsenal, they're coming from work. And so that's one of the reasons why the last hour is when we have our tutoring time, right? So, and so we'll have kids that have homework. There are some that go to schools. We have kids come from over 31 schools, over 30 schools. I think it's 31 actually right now. And so public and private is like 27. I have to check the numbers, but it's like 27 or 28 public schools, something like that. And 4 private, and 1 homeschool co-op. So there's a lot of different homework coming in through the building. So some have homework all the time, some don't. And what we try to do is just make sure that the ones that have homework, that we can pair them with volunteers to help support them. But we also have in-house testing that we do to just see where they are and what their needs are, and then we'll get them working on their weaknesses so that they can fill those gaps and get them stronger so that they're ready for the state proficiency test that they end up doing.
Man. That's fun. I'm worn out just listening to the.
Yeah, it's exhausting, man. Hey, look, it's exhausting because all this is happening and you're dealing with behavioral too, so it is like juggling knives that are on fire, man. It's the focus of just, it takes all your focus, to go through it well. And so it is man, it's exhausting. It's exhausting,
Yeah. Man, so I know you work with kids, like you mentioned, that there's a lot of them that are struggling out there. What's some misconceptions you'd like to tell some parents about, kind of the learning process that you'd like to clear up?
Yeah. Look, and I actually just had a conversation with a mom about this. It's like, sadly, one of the things that happens to kids in our education system is that they're traumatized, and the learning process isn't always good to them. And so they actually are way smarter than they think they are. But the experience that they're having is killing their confidence, and it's killing how they feel about themselves. And so sometimes parents get down on the kids, and like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, it's not the kid, so much as it's a bad process. And they're struggling with the idea of how they're spending the time. And so a story I'll often tell is like, if you were in the desert and you found a oasis, you crash landed in the desert, you built your camp because of the crash site, all your stuff was there. You built the camp at the crash site, and you found an oasis a mile away, and that oasis has water. You go to the well and you pull the bucket up, and you recognize the bucket has holes in it, right? It can hold water, but if you pull that bucket out, you start walking with it, all that water is going to go out in the sand. Would you walk across the sand with that bucket? Everyone says no, right? Everyone says no. You didn't put the water there, right? You didn't put the bucket there, but everyone says no, because the idea of wasting a resource in a limited situation, it doesn't make any sense to us. And so our kids are actually going into school and they feel like they're wasting their time. They feel like they're wasting their resources. And you're telling them it makes sense to walk across the sand with that bucket dripping. And it does not make sense. And so they're having this horrible experience where they're like, this is insane. And so it is insane. And they're not the crazy ones. They're not enjoying it because they feel like they're wasting the best of what they have. And so that's where parents really have to stop and recognize, like, don't just yell at the kid. The kid is actually like confused. They don't understand what's going on, but this is what they're doing. They just know it feels bad. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that, hey, wasting water that's not yours in a situation that's limited, like that's not they, children, man, like literal elementary skill kids can answer that question, right? They feel it. And so that's why I like to educate parents, like, if they have a better experience, you will see a better result, And I think when we try to make it about how well they can jump through the particular hoops that others might be able to jump through, when that's not their bucket, that's not what fills their bucket, that's not what fixes it, that's not what gives them what they need to actually take that resource somewhere else, that is just making them feel worse for something that's bad, that's not good for them. So I think you got to know your child. You got to get to know your child. You got to know that you have to know what the situation really is, what they're going through. Just because they're kids doesn't mean that their thoughts and feelings aren't valid. They're very valid. And their hearts and their minds and their souls are saying, this doesn't make sense. And you can't just keep pushing them because it doesn't make sense. So, just lay off them a little bit and help them to find what really fills them up and encourage them to do that, because it's probably their gifting.
Man, that's a word right there. If your parents are right there, I know you see your kid, it's so frustrating on both ends, but hey, don't give up on them. You're half the time school's asking a fish to climb a tree instead of finding water to swim in, right? So that's where you guys are helping out right there, especially where you can kind of teach them a different way. It's so valuable to have. So I know people are saying, hey, man, that sounds like a pretty cool place. So how can local families or businesses or even other educators get involved and support your mission?
Man, so we have a pretty good website, but we're also very relational, so the first thing to do is check out the staff page and find Sharon Criswell. If you are a company, get in touch with Sharon. She's our development director, super relational. The first thing she's going to ask you to do is come see the building, come do a tour. We can talk about it all day. I'm actually in the building right now. This is a podcast studio that some supporters actually help us put it together for our kids. So our kids, they learn but they've been doing development in here, like they've been doing audio production, and they'll be recording and all that stuff as well. And so, come see the building, come see what God has been doing for these kids to feel included. And then she'll take you out to lunch. We're right around the corner from G's Country Kitchen. So, and talk about just how if an organization wants to support, what that looks like. If you want to volunteer, we have Peyton Bannister. She's our volunteer coordinator. Reach out to Peyton. She'll give you a tour. She'll walk you through all the service opportunities that we have. She's probably going to try to get you, hey, look, if anyone drives a van out there, we have a couple vans that we drive. So to pick up the kids, so van drivers, tutors, we'd love to go 1-to-1 ratio with our K-5 group. And so we need tutors, we need people to drop off snacks. Sometimes, we have organizations that bring snacks by for the kids, or church groups or small groups that do that. So there's tons of ways. Peyton will let you know. And then we have a family coordinator. Her name is Susan Calloway. And so, I know it's tough for everybody with the furlough and the government shutdown. It's tough across this and where we're going. I always love talking about, what we're doing.
That's it. Yeah, those people are great people. Start with Sharon. I'm just you just want to know her regardless, whether you volunteer or do whatever. You just want to know she's
awesome people, man. Best, right? Salt of the earth, man. Salt of the earth, man. Yeah.
Great way to describe her. So I want people to know a little bit more about yourself. I mean, you're obviously a special person to do this role, but I want people to know kind of more about you. So what's your favorite spot in Huntsville to unwind?
Man, that was a tough question, man, because I have a few. I'd say my favorite, though, is the Madison County Nature Trail up on Green Mountain. Man, just sitting down by that water and just don't really have reception most of the time. Yeah, man, that's probably one of my favorite spots in the city, man. But our family, we love going hiking. Any hiking spots, we love. But definitely the Madison County Nature Trail, man. That's one of my favorite spots. Go sit.
Yeah, you're forced to not be on your phone. That's great, man. You can't use it. So yeah. I love that spot too. So what's a book or quote that's influenced the way you lead?
Man, so much John Maxwell, but there's a book by a guy named I think it's Cecil Vandercock, and it's called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's about trauma and understanding trauma. And that book really helped me to see trauma differently, which helped me to understand people at a deeper level. That one has really been big, especially for my leadership at the Learning Center, because when Mr. Art passed away, there was some trauma that really, really hit the staff. And so even continue to navigate through that element was really big. So that book I love. And then I love Simon Sinek as well. Leaders Eat Last. That was a really big one. And then the two others, Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, Dichotomy of Leadership and Extreme Ownership. Those four books, man. And then of course like I said, the John Maxwell stuff, High Road Leadership, John Maxwell. Like, man, yeah, just those have been massive contributors to my leadership style. And then of course Jesus, just the Gospels. So yeah.
Well-rounded group right there. A little bit everything in there. Some great leaders throughout the years and different genres as well. So, what's one of your favorite quotes?
Yeah, so there's actually two that God brought to me very early in my teaching. It's just kind of the way that things make sense to me. One is a quote accredited to Albert Einstein that says, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." And so this is a standard for students and for teachers. If a student can't explain it simply, they don't understand it well enough. If a teacher can't explain it, they don't understand it well enough. So it's just, I love it as a standard. You got to understand it, for you to be able to explain it. And then the other one is by Miles Monroe, preacher, and so he said, "When purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable." And I love that quote. If you don't know what something is created to do, you're bound to mistreat it. And so those two quotes, man, have been kind of the core of my teaching philosophy, but also just like how processes work in my mind now. So those two right there, man, yeah, for sure.
If you think back, your best teachers always could break it down into simple, understandable terms, for sure. So
yeah,
you got to know it backwards and forwards to be able to do that. So that's a great quote. So who's a Huntsville business owner or maybe a local leader that you admire?
There's several, man. So I've been thinking about this one. I think Tommy Battle, man, is Tommy and Mac McCutcheon. They're just fantastic leaders. I think what they were able to do in bringing just community together, and the outgoing mayor of Madison as well, the way that they've worked together to just make it a better place for everybody without it being a competition, without it being about the wrong things. It's like they're literally waking up and working hard. Mayor Finley, they're waking up and working hard to make it better for everybody. And that's just so commendable. And they're definitely examples of what good leadership looks like. They're not in it for the show. They're not in it, for the credit. They're literally in it to make sure they're serving the people that elected them. And I feel like that servant leadership, I sure do hope that anyone that follows in their footsteps will continue in the examples that they've set.
Tough job trying to make everybody happy and work together and collaborate. And I think they've done about as good as you could do. So if you could add one subject to every school curriculum, what would it be?
Ooh, philosophy and critical thinking, man. Life skills, man. Like life lessons, like just being able to understand that questions drive so much, And I feel like school sometimes kills questions, man, because you can't ask good questions and get through a lesson plan. So I wish we could just have something that didn't have a lesson plan. We're just going to ask questions and think and make connections and see how many thoughts are in this room about this thing,
Learning how to think would be an awesome class. You'd think that would be an educational thing. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not...
Yeah.
I know people want to find you. You mentioned the website. What's your website?
Yeah, so www.hsvlc.org. HSV as in Huntsville, LC as in Learning Center.org. And check it out. There's a lot of media. One of my favorite hobbies is photography and a little bit of videography as well now. And so, I'm taking pictures since I got here. There's a ton of pictures, beautiful pictures of the kids. If you want to see some of the experiences that we've had, I know we have a couple of videos, including a music video that should be on the website now that can be checked out. It's a really cool story of how that came about. The song was written for the organization for that. So check it out. Yeah, the website's great. The podcast that we do through the Learning Center, you can access it there too. Newsletters, you can join the mailing list. And all of that. So that's one of the best ways. And then, of course, we're on Facebook. If you want to get that Facebook hit and feel good about it, know that you're looking at something that's uplifting, follow us on Facebook. And we're also on Instagram.
That's it.
Huntsville Learning Center.
Yeah,
Huntsville Learning Center. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll click you. You can click in there. You don't, if you're like me, spelling a bunch of things, you just click on stuff. So that'd be nice. So before I let you go, man, is there something specific our podcast community do to help the Learning Center?
Yeah, so we're going into that December roll, and one of the biggest things that we do that is actually probably one of my favorite programs is we do a toy drive, but we do it a little differently. In a lot of programs where families receive gifts, there's an element that's sometimes missed, which is dignity and pride. And so what we've noticed is that the fathers in particular, if you just give things away, they don't necessarily feel good about themselves, right? And so what we do is we raise funds and we have donations for gifts, and we do a Christmas shopping day where our families actually come in and shop, for pennies on the dollars, 20%, of the cost of whatever the item is, and they'll be able to shop for their kids. And what that the profits from that day, they go back to a family fund that actually supports the families all through the year, so it's net zero for us, but it's just a great way for them to get buy-in, and they leave with pride knowing, they were able to provide something for their families, from their hard work. They provided Christmas just with our support. And so that's probably one of the coolest programs, man, that happens here during the year. So we'll need volunteers for that, donations for that, people coming out and tagging. When we get those gifts that come in, we scan them and price them and put tags on them so that they go in the right place. So that's something, in the middle of December. If you check out the website, it will be on there as well. That we always would love support for, and just get plugged in. Join the newsletter, and you'll see all the things that happen cyclically through the year, and just plug in and see what we do. Just check us out. Keep your eye on us, see, and then maybe something that interests you might pop up, and just give Sharon a holler, give Peyton a holler, give Susan a holler, and just come on over.
Oh, there you go. That's awesome, man. What a great ministry to be able to provide. Just give some pride that, hey, I did this. It wouldn't give it to me. That just means a lot to a lot of people, I know. Hey, man, thank you so much for all that you're doing and having the courage to follow your calling, right? A lot of people get called, but they hang up. You're following your calling, man. Nothing but respect.
Yeah. No, man, God wouldn't let me go, bro. So I was like, he started giving me some options. I was like, no, I don't want that. He's like, I'm going to listen, God. Okay. So, no, but yeah, man, it's been an absolute honor, and it's actually been the best decision that he's ever made me do. And so I'm so thankful, man, that I wasn't stupid beyond the point where I was dumb. Like, I stopped my stupidity and finally listened. And man, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me, man. I love it. I'm so grateful.
Great. Hey, if you're listening right now, please share the story. Please share how the Learning Center, Huntsville Learning Center, could help kids in your community, how you can come alongside, whether you want to donate, you want to volunteer, go drive a bus, put a tag on something. There's some way you can help. I guarantee you go by there, just take a tour, whatever it is. Keep sharing this episode. Ray, keep up the good work you and your staff are doing.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you. Man. Thank you. Appreciate you so much, Doc.
Absolutely, man. I love to hear stories about this. More people need to know about it. So keep sharing this episode. We'll see you guys next week on the Huntsville Hustle Podcast.